Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of YG Talks focused on local advocacy. I'm Emma Barrosa, one of the current members on Youth Board. We have an incredible panel set up for you all today featuring three of our own YNG delegates. We have Solomon Kim, one of the founders of the California Styrofoam Ban, Xitlaali Castellanos, a local civic advocate that registered at least 500 students from her school to vote, and last but not least, Aidan Blain, one of the founders of I Am a Teen Voter. So to kick things off, I just want to hear from our panel on how they started their journey as a local advocate, pushing for the issues that they care about. We can start with Xitlaali.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Xitlaali from the Central Coast Salinas Valley delegation. How I started was through my delegation, actually. I started MUN in 8th grade and got involved in my community in 9th grade. And we had, as a delegation, our goal was to pre-register our students from our local high school to vote. And now it's been 4 years and we've registered over 2,000. So the 500 was after our 9th grade year. Yep.
Incredible. And now to Solomon.
Hi, I'm Solomon. I'm from the Crescenta Valley Family YMCA. And I started the California Styrofoam Ban with a couple of friends. My junior year at Sacramento, it was through YNG's Issues and Activism program. And there I met a lot of other delegates who are really passionate about the environment. And they're very committed to working on things like a boycott and a rally and just reaching out to legislators. And just the infrastructure of YNG really helped us throughout our journey at Sacramento and after.
Very cool.
Cool. Yeah, my name's Aidan. I'm from the Santa Monica Family YMCA. And I guess one of the big things, it kind of just always pissed me off a little bit that teenagers didn't care about politics as much as we should, because it impacts us so heavily, given that everything involving our education, to our healthcare, to our environment, everything that impacts us in our futures directly from voting and the legislators we have in office. And I was kind of baffled on why no one really takes voting seriously. And I think one of the main conclusions I came to is the fact that it's not really accessible. So my junior year of high school, I started this website, a nonprofit called I Am a Teen Voter, which gives high school students basically access to volunteer opportunities and registering to vote. So they don't have to go through all the government websites. They can just go straight to our website and it'll let them access those opportunities that may otherwise have not been very easy to get to.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And so with Xitlaali and Solomon, you guys mainly founded your advocacy work through YNG, but for all of your projects, it sounds like they were very intensive and they also required a team. How did you all find and choose people to help you with your efforts?
Okay, well, we started in our delegation again, and our delegation is very passionate about youth advocacy. And just like Aidan said, a lot of us are not really interested in politics, and mostly it's not that we're not interested, it's not that we're educated. And we wanted to do it, well, first starting with our local high school, and how we got our team was just asking the delegates who wanted to be involved. And because I was an officer in 9th grade, I was in charge of organizing the events, and that's why I was, in charge of the whole project, And then that's pretty much how we got our team going. It was just asking delegates and asking other youth who wanted to be involved. And then we also asked our teachers, because we always need support from other contacts. And thanks to our teachers, we were able to go from classroom to classroom and asking them if they wanted to register to vote, if they knew what voting was, etc., etc.
Very cool. So Solomon, how did you choose essentially your entire team for the California Styrofoam Ban?
It was mainly through the other people in INA and also friends that they had at different schools. So one of the close people that I worked with was Mateen from the Palisades, and he had a lot of friends at Pali as well as different schools. And one of the girls, Margot, had friends from different states. So it was a great opportunity to watch like different parts also launch their own initiatives, because of just how many people the initial people knew.
Mm-hmm. And Aidan, how did you organize your team?
So basically, for me, I had kind of dabbled a little bit with I Am a Teen Voter, and then my friend Jackson Downey and I, who was on my campaign team in youth and government and issues and activism, we went to the Democratic Party convention together, and we kind of brainstormed a lot, just a much wider expansion of I Am a Teen Voter, and from that point on, we picked our for some of our friends, but also some people who are qualified. Regardless of whether people were our friends or not, we wanted to make sure we had a competent and proactive team. And I think we were able to do that. And we kind of expanded and got a 10-person executive team. And then we recruited about 20 other people just to kind of be part of the organization as well. So we mostly put out notifications on Instagram, asked people to join, all that kind of stuff. And we had people fill out applications, and whoever showed us the most passion and just yearning to do it was the people who we went with.
Mm-hmm. And so you guys created your team, right? And then now you have to communicate your message to the legislators because a lot of these organizations are directly pushing for a change in legislation. So what types of methods did you guys use to reach out to legislators to communicate your overall message?
Well, my community is very open to listening from the youth. So what our team did was we just contacted them and they would immediately respond to us. For us, hearing from other stories, we had it much easier than other people, but it was just thanks to their support that we were able to do our certain projects.
Okay. And Solomon, how did you guys reach out?
It was mainly through this phone banking and letter writing and email writing. There was an opportunity to work with an environmental group called Californians Against Waste, and they set up a lobby day for us to go to Sacramento, and there we had a chance to directly talk to legislators and go to their offices, as well as email them afterwards, following up on our visit.
And so how did you come in contact with this group?
There was an article that we found online talking about how this group was working to ban microplastics in California, and we emailed the policy director of the Californians Against Waste, and they were super excited about youth working on this project, and they wanted to work with us because most of the people in that group were members of the older generation. So yeah, just like that, they brought us on, and then the lobby day happened.
Okay, very cool. And Aidan, how did you guys communicate that?
I think our kind of initial, it was actually kind of the weekend that Jackson and I went to the Democratic Convention. We essentially kind of just like put our faces in everybody's faces. We kind of just walked up to everybody and we're like, "Hey, we're doing this. We would love to work with you." We did everybody from state legislators to Beto O'Rourke and Amy Klobuchar and people like that. Basically, anyone who would listen to us, we would talk to them about what we were doing, and we ended up getting a pretty close connection with Assemblymember Evan Lowe's office, who actually invited me to go and testify on ACA 8 in the California Assembly to lower the voting age to 17. And from that point on, we had a pretty close relationship with his office. So we'd work with him for lobbying days, anything like that. And he was a really good resource that we had available. Also, Henry Stern, who's working pretty close with Evan Lowe, was another person who kind of just helped us there. So we kind of found one person who supported what we were doing and then kind of worked with them to get all of our other goals accomplished.
So it sounds like a lot of emailing, a lot of just putting your faith in people and talking to them and talking to your community. So another way to voice your concerns about an issue is also to hold a rally. Xitlaali, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you organized a political rally within your own community. Can you tell me a bit about your experience with that and if you have any tips for people who want to hold their own political rallies?
Yeah, totally. So, actually, when I held this rally was back in September, and due to the many gun shootings, discriminating against people of color, and my community is a large percentage people of color, and they had lost hope, and they just kept looking at the news, and and it just was heartbreaking to see that. And what happened was that I decided to hold a rally, but I needed help, and I got the support of two other delegates from my delegation, Skylar Betts and Amy Yebra, and we organized a rally for about 2 months with the support of Robert Rivas. He's a state assembly member office, and we decided to talk to a lot of city council officers if they could talk, and then we went to different organizations, youth-led organizations in our community, if they wanted to say something about it. And I think a message that I would send out to people who want to hold those rallies is, you can start off with 3 people and the rally just gets bigger and bigger, because there's always going to be people rallying for a cause and they're going to be there to support you. And the best way to do that is just to start off with a small group and then go from there.
And so when you were reaching out to these community members, a lot of times council members, did you show up at the council meetings? Did you contact them through email? How did you reach out to them?
Yeah, I did all. A way for you to get yourself out there is going to the council meetings, getting your face known. They already knew me through the other projects that I had done in my community, but I did email them. I have some of their phone numbers, and I called them. I went to their offices and it gave them flyers, and I was able to get some of the council members to come for our rally, and which is really exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. And so I know Solomon and Aidan, you both, created pretty relevant organizations within California, but I know there are some challenges that you faced when you were creating them. Can you tell us a bit about what challenges you faced when creating California Styrofoam Ban and I Am a Teen Voter?
Yeah, so one of the challenges I faced was just getting everyone on the same schedule and the same call at the same time, because we're all students and have our schoolwork and just like life. It's hard for us to be all on the same page. So definitely video calls and meetings were difficult to organize, especially because some of us were from NorCal and SoCal, so it was hard to meet. And second, I would say that one difficulty was just um, like I guess like in terms of lobbying and reaching out to legislators, we wouldn't necessarily always get a response back. Oftentimes it were just emails that we sent but no response. And in those situations, we found it was a lot easier to work with already established groups like Californians Against Waste, because they already have influence, and we might just come off as high schoolers to these legislators. So yeah,
Mm-hmm. So pairing with those types of organizations. Gotcha.
yeah, definitely.
And Aidan?
Yeah, I think our kind of one of our barriers was definitely money, because we had a lot of goals that we wanted to do with taking trips and all stuff like that. And kind of the way we started was just we started a nonprofit, and we kind of had to do a GoFundMe around all of that. But we held some pretty nice fundraisers. We raised a few $1,000s kind of to start off, inviting all of our friends and family kind of to one of our houses and doing a presentation explaining all the stuff we wanted to do. But then through one of our members, we actually had a connection to a law firm who connected us to lawyers who were doing getting our nonprofit status for free, so pro bono. So I think our biggest problem is kind of like the legal side of everything, and just most kind of gaining that momentum if we're going to talk about the activism side of things, because kind of gaining a following and gaining people who are going to follow your organization and contribute to it, that's just kind of like something that comes with time. It's not going to happen all at once. Like it's one of those things that you kind of just got to build up, and it's almost like a slow snowball effect where it kind of starts. You have to push it really hard at the beginning, but as you gain more and more momentum, it's going to get going faster and faster by itself. So I think that kind of working with that and just getting other people to know what our cause was, especially legislators, and getting other kids our age to get involved and become active with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. And so, Xitlaali, when you were doing your voter registration, because I know you guys registered thousands of kids to vote, which is incredible, what challenges did you face doing that? And how did you reach out to such a large quantity of students?
I think the biggest challenge was definitely getting started. A lot of kids really did not like the idea of us going into their classroom and giving a 15-minute presentation saying this is why it's important to vote. and also the teachers. Although we had many supportive teachers, we also had teachers that would be like, why are you doing this? But I think that those were some of the challenges. But after some time, and how we got to so many kids was because we just kept on persisting. Patience is key to get something done, especially when it's about advocacy. And at some point, it became almost like the kids would expect us to come every single year and go into our classrooms. This year we were running a little late, and our teachers would literally ask, like, when are you going to do this? When are you going to register? And I think that it's all part about being patient and, continuing to push through those obstacles in order to get get something done.
Absolutely. And so for students who are listening right now and who are interested in registering their friends and their peers once this COVID-19 thing blows over, who or what organization should they be reaching out to start to register kids to vote if they need help?
Right. Yeah. So our project, we didn't, go with any sort of organization, but what we did is we talked to a teacher. For me, it was my APUSH teacher, Mr. Moore, and he's like, yes, I can get you in contact with the Monterey County Office of Elections. And I think that's a great way to start. If you talk to your county and ask that you want to do this project, they will contact you and tell you what the requirements are and how they can help for you to, fulfill this project.
Mm-hmm. And so I was also told that, you were a representative for the National Advocacy Days this year. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, what you learned from that, and if you have any tips for advocacy from that trip?
It was amazing. I loved being part of it this year. Loved every single person that went. What I learned that people are willing to listen and people are always looking for advice. And when I went with these, 50 kids from all of these different states, everyone had a different idea or thought in a different form. But at the end of the day, we got things done because we were able to compromise. And it was just such an interesting dynamic from coming from, YNG in California to national YNG and having everybody, like, there were some people that came from programs that had 200 kids while we have 3,000, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just a very interesting dynamic. Things that I learned was people are really willing to help. And, you think that the youth feel unheard, but things are starting to change slowly where it feels now that adults are trying to get our attention and trying to get, to hear us. So I think we just have to keep pushing and keep saying we're here and we're going to stay.
Mm-hmm. What were the major issues that you guys discussed with the legislators up there?
Well, all 50 of us had different issues that we talked about, but some of the issues, mine was talking about child safety, and I talked about how uh, our state legislators should vote to reauthorize CAPTA, which is Child Abuse Prevention Program. And that was
Mm-hmm.
what I focused on, but other people focused on, child health, community health, et cetera, YMCA core values and ideas that they wanted to push through legislation.
Very cool. And were you able to make any connections with any of the legislators up there? Like, did they want to hear more from you guys even after the National Advocacy Days was done?
Yeah, definitely. Our legislators, I met with Feinstein's office and I did get their numbers. We're still in contact, but I actually got to meet Kamala Harris, which was very exciting.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, no, I did cry, I'm not gonna lie. But I got to meet her and we were talking and I got many other contacts and we're still talking, especially due to the COVID-19 crisis and how YUSA is trying to pass legislation along, and it's up to the Y advocates to try and tell the legislators, look, this is what you should pass. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and especially during this time, it's super important for all of us YMCA delegates to come together and really push for that legislation. So I completely
Right,
agree.
definitely.
And so when you guys were advocating with your voter registration drives, with your organizations, when you had those groups, they were mainly youth-led, but did you guys include any adults in that process, or was it solely youth-led, and why?
For all of my events, there were definitely adults involved. For me, it's the thing about, yes, youth advocacy, but we need some type of guide. And for example, for the registration drive, we had, again, my AP history teacher who was able to lend us the county contacts. And then we had the Monterey County election officer who came and taught us about it. So we definitely had different adults and they all had different roles, but they also allowed us to organize and do it with our ideas. So I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a balance.
And Solomon, I'm sure within INA, you guys had some advisors that helped you guys out with the foundation of the California styrofoam ban.
Yeah, we had Nate and Mackenzie, and there were just a lot of great advisors, as well
Mm-hmm.
as the adults at Californians Against Waste. Yeah, it was just cool working with people who have a lot of experience and people who just saw our passion and saw our potential and were willing to support us.
And what about you, Aiden?
Yeah, for our organization, we originally I got the funding from the Jewish Federation through a grant I applied for, and they paired me with someone who had experience in my area who was also Jewish from LA. His name was David Turkle, and he has been like our biggest helper, everything along the way. He got us to meet Cory Booker. We got stuff with like we were so close to organizing an event with Beto O'Rourke, but it kind of slipped out of our hands a little bit because he dropped out. But but he was a huge help to us, and he was he works at a company called Scale LA, which they have really awesome office space in kind of Culver City, West LA area, and he let us use it
Mm-hmm.
for meetings. He invited us to events with presidential candidates at his place, and he kind of just gave us any resources we needed and provided kind of a voice who's involved in everything, but also involved in like the kind of more entrepreneurship side of politics. And he was really, really useful in all that stuff because he kind of just gave us the guidance we needed to be successful. And we're still working with him even to this day. So he's been a really important player for us along the way.
Yeah, definitely. So prior to this podcast, we sent out like a question sticker on Instagram for some of the delegates to ask you guys questions. And so someone asked, who in your life inspired you to get involved in advocacy?
A lot of people, but what got me started would probably be my parents. Yeah, so they, in our community, they were not really educated and didn't know about their voting rights and et cetera, et cetera. I think that's what got me started wanting to advocate for them. Later on, it was my advisor who, Ms. Caldera, I love her. She was one of the first people to tell me that I had a voice and that I was able to do things with my voice. I think that was definitely something that started it off. But throughout the years, so many people inspire me in my community to keep moving and to keep advocating for what I believe in. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And Solomon, who inspired you?
Definitely my YNG advisor. I think she's just always been there for me since I was an eighth grader in MUN, and she's always pushed me and just believed in me. I know she's watched me grown through YNG as like a shy delegate to leading things, and she's been at every TLA, every conference, every Wednesday meeting, every Monday meeting, and yeah, so definitely her.
And Aiden?
Definitely it has to be my parents because my parents are very adamant about their beliefs. Like my dad would yell at the TV when Trump talks. um, and ever since I was a little kid, um, I've been going. Like my dad took me to my first Democratic convention when I was like 4, or 5 or something like that. And like I went to Occupy Wall Street March when I was like 9, and I made it on a broadcast. And I went to like Obama's inauguration party when I was 7. Like my parents have just had me always very involved in politics, so it's kind of come natural to me, just being very active and just kind of caring about what's going on. But I think after I think one of the things that helped me kind of the most was in my freshman year, when kind of around like the first youth and government conference in 2016 was legitimately like 5 days after Trump was elected, and like that was just it was just such a weird atmosphere to be involved in, because like kind of everyone was in shock, but everyone was also like simultaneously kind of mad too.
Yeah.
So that whole energy just really propelled, I guess, my sense of activism, because I started realizing that like the world is not just like politics are about to get really rough, even rougher than they were before. So then I kind of just ended up getting really involved after that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Donald Trump was my motivator, my motivator too.
So yeah, I don't know if that really counts, but Donald, love
No,
you,
I
Donald.
completely
Thanks.
agree. Um, let's see. So we went through some of the questions, but I just think for the remainder of this podcast, I really just want to hear if you guys have any tips for the delegates listening right now who are interested in starting their own organizations, but just don't know how or just want some general tips. So, do you guys have any general tips for them when they're thinking about starting their own groups to advocate for an issue?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to focus on a lot of issues, and because we obviously care about a lot of things, but
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes you just have to realize that it's impossible to fight for everything. Like, you really need to invest your time and energy into that one issue that you really, really care about, and find like-minded individuals who also value that issue above everything else. Because yeah, I feel like that's the best way to make an impact in one specific area, is just focusing your energy there, and from there you'll find resources, groups, people, teams who are willing to help. But it's definitely prioritization and realizing what you genuinely care about.
Yeah, for me, I guess I'd say that kind of similar. Like you definitely want to have like a specific issue. You don't want to say I want to change like just I want to make every issue in the world better, because that's kind of not very productive. But if you find like one issue you're really passionate about, I think one of the biggest things is to get specific about it and understand what you want to do. Like I know a lot of the times with the gun rights movements, I've seen people just say we want gun rights, and it's like, well, what do you want? And they're like gun rights, and it's like, well, that's not there's
Yeah.
nothing concrete. That's just rhetoric. So I think that a lot of people like to support issues, but if you really actually want to do something with the issue, you have to figure out what legislation you want to get passed, what specific provisions of legislation you want passed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just gun rights, but you want to ban bump stocks or um, increase universal background checks, stuff like you have to like pick out specific little things. Like for us, it was lowering the voting age to 17 in California, which is our big issue. I also think that another really important thing is persistence and presenting yourself in a manner where people will want to work with you. You want to be someone who, if you reach out to a legislator's office, even if you get a no the first time, like be respectful about it, but like be respectfully persistent. Like if some, because this is a lot of the times the offices will try to kind of brush you off, and if you kind of take what they're giving you, then you won't get what you want out of it. But if you keep asking them and not really giving up and send them an email every few days, even if they stop responding to you, they'll kind of get the message that you care about whatever you're doing. And I think this kind of
Mm-hmm.
just works in general in life. Like if you're respectful, not like overly just obnoxious, but if you're respectfully persistent, I think people understand that it's important to you and will take you more seriously, because they understand that you care about this as much as you're conveying in whatever email or call you send them. So I think that really being persistent when it comes to the issues you care about is the way to get things done if you're going to start your own organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so my work is very community driven, and I think the best advice that I can give is having conversations with everybody. Like having that one-on-one conversation. You never know what you're going to get out of it. Just because I had a one-on-one conversation, I got into, YNG. And I think that those are very important because then that's how you build connections, especially in your community, and then that's how you get your name known and what you're advocating for. It's, oh, that's that person who's known for registering students. Let's go ask her if she can register me. And so I think that's very important, especially if you're thinking about doing community work.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me and voicing your opinions and your experience. So you guys are all powerhouses. I'm super amazed right now about how incredible you guys have been working, and I'm so sad you guys are all seniors too, because I hope you guys continue all of your work in college as well. But yeah, with that, I want to thank you guys for joining me in the second episode of YG Talks. Hopefully our listeners learned more about what it means to be an advocate and heard some useful ideas on starting their own groups within their respective communities. Thank you all so much for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode focused on philanthropy.